Welcome to the Key Points here on TV3 and 3FM, and it's hashtag the Key Points. Do send us your tweets on Twitter and also send your messages through. Now, what is usually a long night and a formality to approve the budget took an unexpected turn. The 2022 budget remains in limbo depending on which side of the fence you sit on. You may think otherwise. Well, the minority in Parliament insists that the budget has been rejected based on a voice vote taken by the Speaker without the majority who had walked out in disagreement over some issues. Well, the minority is claiming victory over Momo levy and e-levy. Well, the majority takes a different view. For them, the budget for 2022 is still in play and has not been rejected because inputs taken from the minority side are being factored in. So what happens now that Speaker Bagman is off tonight to the UAE for 2 weeks of medical checks? We'll find out. But if you are watching the National Science and Maths quiz, maybe that's why you missed the whole drama. So we bring that to you now.
Of the minister for the House to give him the opportunity to engage further with the leaders. Say aye. Those against, say no. Honorable members, I think the noes have it. Honorable members, if we have a non-member of Parliament seated here, I have the power under the orders to call on the marshal to get the person out of the house. Honorable members, honorable members, honorable members, may I honorable members resume your seats.
Parliament for the good people of Impraiso. Yes, if Asiedu Ketia doesn't work out of this chamber, nothing will go.
Asiedu Ketia is not going anywhere. Asiedu Ketia is not going anywhere today. Asiedu Ketia is here. See, everybody, we know you. You want to pay people. See, Asiedu will leave. He must leave. Something. What do you think you are? Nothing of what I say. Honorable members, honorable members, honorable members, I refer you to Order 104. It says,
And that was the drama in the House yesterday. And interestingly, the walkout by the majority was led by a first-time backbencher, the MP for Mpraiso. Now, for those of you who may not have caught on what happened, so initially, the finance minister was in the House with his team, and it was part of efforts to make a case for a slight delay such that they could include issues that the minority wanted, for instance, Keta, sea defense and all that. But the decision was to remove him from the House, and that's where the Speaker talked about the Marshal escorting him out because he's not a member of Parliament. However, there was a dispute about the presence of the General Secretary of the NDC, Johnson Asiedu Nketia, who also happens to be a member of the Parliamentary Service Board. But he was in the public gallery. And so everything then spiraled out of control because there was a view that if the finance minister was forced to exit, then Mr. Asiedu Nketia needed to leave as well. Well, they exited and a decision was made to continue with proceedings without the majority. Let's hear Speaker Bagbin conducting that vote.
Witnessed. And so I kept on trying to get them to understand that they should pass their concerns to their leaders so that give the opportunity for the leaders to articulate why there was that disorder in that part of the House. I did not get it until they started moving out. And later, a paper was passed on to me that they were insisting that the General Secretary of the NDC should leave the public gallery before the question is put. This is where we are now. I wasn't even given the opportunity to decide whether to let him be at the public gallery or not. I wasn't given that opportunity, and they walked out. So this is the stage we have reached. And the question is whether we should proceed now. As you know, for more time to do consultation with leaders of the House, and therefore not to put the question today. Those in favor of that request, please stand out and be counted. Those against that request, please kindly stand up to be counted. So the noes have it, and the request is accordingly lost. Those in favor of the approval, of motion number 11 on the order paper, which says, and I read, that this Honorable House approves the budget statement and economic policy of the government for the year ending 31st December 2022. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against the motion say no. Honorable members, clearly the noes have it.
All right, so that was the decision by Speaker Bagbin there to take that voice vote. But does it hold? Does it mean that the 2022 budget has been rejected and thrown out? Does that mean that no money for government business and for all of us in this state of Ghana for 2022? Or does this just mean the majority and the finance ministry need to go back and do their homework and come back? Well, we'll be discussing that. We'll bring you the response of the majority leader later. But let me introduce our guests. Abraham Amaleba is the head of legal affairs for the NDC. He's at the far right of this table. Next to him is Justice Abdullahi, who is a law lecturer at the UPSA Faculty of Law. And next to me, maintaining his regular seat whenever he's here, is the Honorable Joseph Kpemka, former Deputy Attorney General. Gentlemen, you are all welcome and thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having us.
All right, so who wants to take the first bite? Maybe I'll start with Abraham Amaleba. So, you know, watching that, what runs through your mind? Is the 2022 budget totally out?
Let me say a very, very good morning to your viewers. What struck me yesterday, watching the proceedings in Parliament, was that we are beginning to see our democracy really working. That we are beginning to see Parliament actually playing its oversight role. And that those days when the executive could just throw in anything and the Parliament would just endorse it are over. We have gotten to this stage with the help of the people of this country. They are the ones who provided this hung Parliament. And what played out yesterday is what the people of this country want to be seeing. That's what the people of this country, when they went to the polls, told our politicians that this is what we want to be happening in our Parliament. That you must scrutinize, you must ensure that whatever comes from the executive is to the benefit of the people of this country. Now, this budget, clearly, before we even got to the stage that we got to yesterday, where they were to vote to accept or not to accept, we heard the hue and cry of Ghanaians about the debilitating nature, the effect of this budget if it is passed through. And so what happened yesterday, where Parliament decided to vote against the budget, was a clear indication that parliamentarians were speaking the voice of the people. Now, let's get to the nitty-gritties and what happened in Parliament yesterday. There was the decision that the Minister of Finance wanted to further engage leadership. That was put to vote, voice vote, and it was rejected. Then the Deputy Majority Leader, Afenyo Markin, challenged the decision of the Speaker. And so there was now the need to go in for, they call it a separation or what? Separation. And so the rules for separations too have been laid out in the standing orders. And so you needed to clear the, as it were, the floor of the House. And we all saw when the Speaker gave that order, the Finance Minister respectfully decided to leave quietly. And at that stage, there was no commotion. It took a backbencher, and you played it here, it took a backbencher to move from the back, go to the middle of the majority side, and started
riling his colleagues.
Exactly, whipping up sentiments, and that brought about the commotion. So my point is that we could have gone ahead with the challenge that Afenyomaku raised without any commotion.
But you haven't addressed the presence of Johnson Asiedu Nketia, which also triggered the anger of the majority members.
But if I raise a point, I have to conclude. Then I'll go to the next one. So that attitude or conduct of the backbencher from the majority side actually created the commotion. Now, the issue of my general secretary, who was at the public gallery, and don't forget that this was not a closed-door meeting or whatever, a closed-door sitting of Parliament. In fact, Parliament, because all of us cannot enter there, that's why some people have been asked to go and sit there. So, in designing the Parliament House, they were mindful that some of us will be there. And so that's why there's a public gallery. So, General Mosquito, who was a member of the public, was at the public gallery, but not even alone. There were other people too at the public gallery. The order was to have the floor cleared because Afenyomaku's intervention is that, Mr. Speaker, you heard wrongly. I heard rightly. The yes have it, or the yeah have it. Mr. Speaker, you saying that the no have it is wrong. So what do we do? And those voice votes came from the floor, not from the public gallery. So what will happen is that there are some people who, if by law, are supposed to be there, but they are not supposed to vote. So what do we do? In order that we do not come to the same conclusion where Afenyomaku heard differently and the Speaker heard differently, is to clear those who are not supposed to partake in the voice vote.
But how do you know members in the public gallery are not taking part?
Oh, I thought that you, because you are a journalist, you've gone to Parliament before, and the public gallery where you are, if you even shout, it cannot form part of, it can't reach the floor. Unless you want to use a mic, and I don't think they are allowed to do that. So it's the floor of the House. Okay. Now, when that decision was taken, then you saw the majority now beginning to say, how about Asiedu Nketia? But that for me was a red herring, because at the public gallery, people are allowed to sit there, and there was no order that the public gallery should be cleared. Before you even say somebody should leave the public gallery, he must have been engaged in untoward behavior. They didn't cite what untoward behavior Asiedu Nketia was engaged in. So that was for me a red herring. Then came the decision to vote, to decide whether or not. Because Afenyomaku had walked out, that means his motion or whatever he has abandoned it. And so then came the decision to vote on whether to accept or reject the budget. The decision was taken, the voice vote had it, that it should be rejected. And so for me, all the processes were followed. I'm hearing people talking about 138.
Okay. We'll come to the details of the law. So for you, the budget is out.
What happened yesterday was in accordance with law, and the budget is out.
But is it fair that 275, that's not a full quorum, isn't it?
To what?
The members of parliament who form
275.
Yes,
yeah,
137. They don't. That doesn't form a full quorum, does it?
No, please. Quorum of parliament is 1/3.
Quorum, you need 95 or 96
of the House.
So that quorum there was a quorum.
For you, there was. So there was a quorum. Because I'm raising it because there's the argument that there wasn't. So I just want to know.
Quorum.
No, there was the argument that is there is different.
Quorum, we just need, when you look at the House, 275, we just need some 96, 95.
Okay.
And they were more than that.
All right, great. So let me bring in Honorable Kpemka now. So you saw all that has happened. I've seen a narrative that's been put out by the majority saying that it is not true that the 2022 budget has been thrown out, that the budget is still in play, and that it will come back. It's still pending. That is work that will be done. So what are your thoughts on that?
Thank you very much. You see, I've listened carefully to my brother, and we've all watched the scenes, and some of them unpleasant and etc. But let me put things in perspective. You see, the whole of what happened yesterday was actuated by bad faith on the part of the minority, and I'll soon demonstrate that. The bad faith was that they raised issues, and I was glad that my brother, in making his submissions, did indicate that Ghanaians gave us a hung parliament for purposes of accountability and etc. That is not in dispute, because that indeed is what happened on the 7th of December. But the point is this: if you raise issues and you are looking for national interest, you say that there are certain portions of the budget you do not support, and you don't support it because it will bring excruciating pain and worsen poverty situations and etc. That is your cry for the common person. And then the majority side says, okay, then give us an opportunity to incorporate your concerns into the budget before approval is given. You raised the issue and you said that if those ones, your concerns are incorporated, you are ready to cooperate with government and get the budget passed. That was the condition precedent. That was the condition precedent.
You can remove it or you...
So if that was the condition precedent and the majority says, okay, minister is here, he's going to carry out that which you have requested, namely be allowed to incorporate your concerns before the approval is given. Then the same people who suggested that their concerns be incorporated before approval is given reject the proposal for their concerns to be incorporated by a voice vote. Clearly, that is acting in bad faith. Then, from there, the concerns are raised. And remember that at that particular point in time, the Minister for Finance was part and parcel of the House. The only thing he didn't have was a voting right. He had no voting right at that moment, but he was a part and parcel of the House, and a member of the House for that matter. So you then ask that, and that for me, I have not seen it in my stay in the House and earlier situations where you ask marshals to walk out the Minister of Finance and etc. That was not necessary. We could have found a better way of handling it. Nonetheless, this was insisted upon, and then he was asked to walk out. Then a concern was raised that the General Secretary of the NDC is here. If you are talking about that, then he should also leave the place. And in the midst of the commotion and etc., the majority insisted. Their wish was never granted, and so they had to walk out. But fundamentally, when they walked out, then the Speaker had to proceed with business, and all laws were in force and effectively should be implemented. So what is the law? The law governing situations as like what happened yesterday is Article 104 of our Constitution, which is rehashed in the Standing Orders of Parliament. Article 104 says that for purposes of taking decisions such as the budget, for example, you need to have more than half, at least half. You need to have at least half of the members of Parliament present before you can take such a decision. Now, half of the members of Parliament be 138. It cannot be 137. But at the time the decision was taken, the majority side, that is the MPP members and the independent person, were all out of the chamber. So it means that we had 137. And indeed, Mr. Speaker asked for a count. And when they did, there were 137. So clearly, the legal gurus that we have there, including Mr. Speaker himself, should have drawn their attention to Article 104 and the Standing Orders of Parliament, which insists that you should have more than half, at least half of the members of Parliament present before you undertake such a decision. And so to the extent that they did not comply with this strict constitutional injunction, whatever took place yesterday is a nullity. Simpliciter. It died at the very moment the decision was taken because it did not comply with the constitution, which is the supreme law of the country. So if it were things like standing orders and etc., you can say you are masters of your own rules. But this is a constitutional injunction. You cannot act to negate a very clear constitutional stipulation and get away with it. So clearly, their conduct yesterday, after the majority walked out, there should have been engagements if they wanted to proceed with business to get them back. So to the extent that they did not come back before the decision was taken, is contrary to Article 104. And to that extent, whatever took place is a nullity. Now, as I indicated, the minority made a case. They were talking about the level of the levy, the e-levy, 1.75. And they said that it was going to bring pain and suffering to Ghanaians. And then they raised other concerns. Then the majority says, okay, we find some level of wisdom in some of the concerns you are raising. So give us an opportunity so we incorporate it and we can have the document passed. You raised it and said, okay, you will only listen to or support the budget if your concerns are taken into consideration. How do you take their concerns into consideration? You take it into consideration when the man who moved the motion, namely the minister, is given an opportunity to address how he intends to incorporate their concerns into the budget before it is actually approved. Then the same people who raised this by voice vote reject the fact that the ministers will be given an opportunity to incorporate their grievances. Clear acting in bad faith. Simpliciter. And it was because of that malice, so to speak, that led them to ignore a clear constitutional provision and take a decision. Look, clearly, at the next sitting, all that the majority members will need to do is to raise a motion for rescission. And when that motion is actually raised and it is voted upon, it will become very clear that once it sins against what the action sins against a particular provision of the Constitution, you had no right to proceed with it. So they have to rescind and then take the vote again after cool heads have prevailed. But what I will just plead with is that, look, we cannot, by virtue of individual and personal interest, stagnate this nation. We must move on as a people. And the only way we can move on as a people is to engage one another. Remember, and I keep saying this, that in life, whatever goes around, comes around. Look, tomorrow, it may be the other way, that NDC is in power and find themselves in a similar situation. How are we going to run this nation? Are we going to run it on the basis of personal whimsical caprices, or are we going to run it on the basis of national cohesion and development of our people? So the social interventions we are talking about, school feeding program, you are talking about free senior high school, you are talking about payment of allowances to teachers and nursing trainees, you are talking about planting for food and jobs, you are talking about other social interventions, infrastructure, all that we are saying to be thrown away, and for the next 12 months there is no budget to run the country. Is that what we want as a people?
Okay, so I'll come back to you for more, but we have the Information Minister, the Honorable Kojo Oppong-Nkrumah, joining us via phone. Let's just take some comments from him because he was in the House and was part of the debate yesterday. Good morning to you, Mr. Oppong-Nkrumah, and many thanks for some of your time. To start with, what is the position of the majority on how proceedings went yesterday?
Eva, good morning. Good morning to my good friends in your studio this morning. I think the majority caucus has actually issued a statement which you may have to share with your audiences, and it articulates the majority position pretty clearly. That yesterday in the House, in our bid to get work done, something unconstitutional transpired. And I think my very good friend, the Honorable Bemka, has articulated that succinctly. Something unconstitutional took place, which was a decision that 137 people have the capacity to make a decision in the name of Parliament. You don't need any excessive legal interpretation to let you understand that That cannot happen. 3 members of parliament can sit in the chamber and take a decision. 4 cannot, 5 cannot, 6 cannot. It's the same reason for which 137 cannot. It takes 138 members to take a decision in the name of parliament. It's unfortunate that when events transpired that shot tensions through the roof and caused the majority caucus to walk out, the minority and the speaker proceeded with 137 people purporting to take a decision. And so by the time that the majority caucus was done with its caucus meetings, etc., trying to impress on members that we need to have the necessary consensus to move the national agenda forward. They, in the chamber, were claiming that they had taken a decision with 137 members. That's obviously unconstitutional. And so I think the majority caucus statement this morning clearly explains that the constitutional provisions will have to be followed, and in the end, the right thing will have to be done for Ghana. That's where we are currently.
But Mr. Oponkroma, there's a view that the majority should not have walked out. There's also a perception that this was something the majority decided to do, knowing fully well that there's opposition to other aspects of the budget. Shouldn't the majority have taken steps to further engage in a manner that would not have led to a degeneration like we saw yesterday?
The majority actually told the whole country and the speaker and the minority members that they desire for the finance minister to engage. Why? Because the minority had raised a number of things that needed to be included. For example, KETA tidal waves relief should be factored into the fiscal tables. If I ask you this morning, Gifa, does that mean 1 million or 10 million or 7 million? I'm not sure you can tell me. They said, for example, they wanted to see an adjustment to the electronic transactions levy. Does that mean bring it down to 1.5 or 1.25 or 1? They listed a number of things that they wanted to see addressed before they can support it. And the majority leader explained clearly, the finance minister explained clearly that, okay, it is important, therefore, to engage and agree on what these figures are so that then we can proceed with the work. And then the very same persons who had made this argument and the very same speaker who earlier you would find giving instructions on his own to ministers now say that, no, they don't want to engage and therefore intend to proceed and take a vote on the budget. At the same time, and I think what actually angered a good chunk of the majority members of parliament, the speaker threatened that he was going to have the marshals, or he could have the marshals escort the finance minister out of the chamber. Unprecedented, unwarranted, unprovoked. And it really riled people up. It was in this exercise that then you saw, I mean, I'm sure you all witnessed the chaos that ensued. And when the majority stepped out of the chamber, addressed the media and explained, now started exercises to calm its members down that, listen, we still believe we can get the team to agree to engage. We only turn around to hear that they say they have, with 137 members on record, they have voted on the budget, which cannot have happened. And so I think the majority position, as I mentioned earlier, is very, 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 very clear. Just like 3 people cannot take the decision on the budget and 4, 5, or 6 cannot, 137 cannot. And therefore, the constitutional things will have to be done following the reconvening of Parliament.
Now, this sitting of Parliament was mainly a budget sitting that we know. Now, with the way things have gone, tell us what happens next, because we are learning that Speaker Bagbin will be out of town for 2 weeks. Does that mean that his deputy speakers will take the chair to take a relook at the budget proceedings and ensure that it's passed, or something else will be done, or we have to wait till next year?
I honestly do not have answers to the immediate next steps and the methods that would have to be used. But I think it is very clear for every person who's watching that what has happened is unconstitutional and is now a void, brutum frumen, right from the very beginning. The next thing will be that, of course, we have to understand that partisan considerations ought not to be what lead us in our effort to build our country. Because, for example, if you say you have, assuming without admitting that a budget has been rejected, you know the implications. I mean, the whole country grinds to a halt. Essential services, security, everything grinds to a halt. It's a state of chaos. I'm not sure that's what anybody's looking for in this country. And so it will be important for leadership across the divide to engage and explore how quickly to correct this purported decision that was made, or how to get the constitutional thing done. That will be what is most important in the interest of the entire republic. The specifics and the hows that they go about it, there are many and varied. You could go to the Supreme Court to make a clear determination that 137 people will be in clear violation of Article 104 of the Constitution and Order 109 of the Standing Orders. That's one path you could go. You could do what Mr. Benka talks about, which is a vote of rescission. But the vote of rescission supposes that what was done was legitimate and Parliament is only rescinding it. But what was done, or what was purported to have been done, is unconstitutional. It didn't happen. So a vote of rescission may not even apply in that instance. You could come to the floor with a substantive motion to challenge the decision by the Speaker that 137 people can take a decision, because you'll recall that the Speaker actually counted the numbers in the chamber. And at that time, this is a basic rule. I mean, it's like when you're starting a meeting. First, you need quorum. Then after quorum, when you are getting to a decision, you need at least 138 people in the chamber. So at the time they counted and had 137 and openly announced that they had 137, they were put on inquiry. They were clearly put on inquiry. And so you have another avenue which now allows you to quickly examine the constitutionality of what was done, or the decision as made by the Speaker that 137 people can take a decision in Parliament. And then by substantive motion, you can do that. So there are various avenues. You can also have leadership engage and realize that, listen, the nation is more important than scoring political points. The nation is more important than you're attempting to say I'm number 2 or number 1 and I can remove this one and I can obstruct government business and I can do this and I can do that. The nation is more important than that. And therefore it's important to coalesce and do the business that the people of Ghana send all of us into these offices to do. So there are various options, but I believe that leadership can engage and choose which option to choose. Remember, Parliament, yes, I am a member of Parliament, but Parliament is a different forum from we in the executive. We have declared that Parliament will be able to find a way forward to correct this obvious unconstitutionality that was purported to have been done late last night.
Many thanks to you, Information Minister, the Honorable Kojo Opong Nkrumah. Let me come to Justice Abdullahi and then I'll read some messages. And Justice Abdullahi, how does all of this look to you? The near split Parliament seems to be posing certain challenges, especially if there's a perception that the majority does not engage in a timeous manner in an effort to push through government business.
Thank you. Remember, on the 6th of January, I was in this very studio and I made a number of projections as to how our new parliament was going to be. I indeed remember clearly stating that we're never going to have the typical rubber stamping parliament that we are used to in this republic. And this is yet one of such instances. Now, if you've noticed, since the inauguration of this parliament, you've noticed that the Speaker has been very active in the public space. He has been very active in the governance structure. And as I described him, he's almost an activist as compared to his predecessors. We've never had the kind of activism that this Speaker has exhibited as much as, in fact, possibly his entire predecessors combined. They have never been able, he has achieved, in that light, being in the public space and the governance structure more than all his predecessors have ever done. And so I think that we should see this parliament and the conduct of the Speaker from this angle. And all these comments about his ability to remove the president and he being number 3, these are all factual, though, and constitutional. However, they may not be necessary for the public consumption because we don't need that. We just need the country to work to its perfection. Now, that alone should have put, all these have said, should have put the majority side on notice, as you rightly pointed out, that things are not the same. And so if you really want to build a solid country, you build it knowing that the odds are already against you.
But is it
So
fair
you put
for a perception that the minority may be seeking to use their advantage, their numbers, to make business difficult for the majority?
I don't think, well, I do not think that is what is happening. I think we are seeing just a reflection of the kind of parliament that we have. And that is why all sides must be very careful in the way they go about things. And so I think it would be a wrong perception to say that simply because the minority has the numbers, they intend to frustrate the other side. I'm not of that opinion at all. I do not share into that. I mean, in that, I think that they are doing exactly what they ought to be doing. And indeed, this is what we have expected from all other minority members of parliament right from the beginning of this Republican Constitution, which we've never seen. And so, for me, this is good. I haven't seen them going overboard. Not yet. If it happens, we will condemn it.
So they went overboard on the night of the inaugural.
That was not the minority. That was not the minority issue.
So that's
was
the
a
House.
Parliamentary issue.
The House
being, misconducting themselves in the way they did. But that cannot be blamed on the minority or even the majority. So, yes, for now, everything is very positive. It is quite weird, though, that the decision taken by Parliament is being described as not being taken at all. The fact is that a decision has been taken. That is a fact. That fact also remains that the budget
decision has been taken by Parliament without the other side.
Indeed, it has been taken.
I think Honorable Kmemka raised the constitutional options for us and showed us that it's null and void.
It is not null and void. A decision has been taken. That is correct, and that has to be accepted. Now, as to the effect of that decision or the constitutionality or otherwise, I think that is a matter that can be discussed and determined subsequently. At this moment, you cannot wish away the fact of the decision having been taken. You may have issues with the constitutionality of it, but that is a matter that you would have to raise. And the processes of raising that and even getting it changed, assuming you are right, is where the problem lies. My point is that this whole drama that unfolded and the event that would unfold going forward from Tuesday make it even worse for all of us. Because at this moment, these are the options left for us. You either amend, if assuming that indeed is unconstitutional. And let me point out the constitutional aspect of it, the Article 104 that was raised. And there is even that genuine challenge with the interpretation. It says that matters in Parliament shall be determined by the votes of majority of members present and voting. Majority. So it is not, so like Pemba said, at least half or more. With at least half of them being present. Now, this is where they take the majority take their issue from, that at least half of them present. Now, did we have half of the members of Parliament present at the inception? Now, if yes, then there's clearly a challenge. My point here is this: whether this half present actually refers to the minute of taking the decision or the commencement of the decision, the commencement of sitting, which I can understand Penga to be saying that, well, that may go into the issue of quorum. But beyond quorum, there were members of Parliament present, and those members were more than 200. That 200...
That's not how Parliament works.
That's the decision that is part of the debate. You see? So the issue is that once we had more than 200 people present at the time, and some decided to walk out, assuming somebody decided to go to the washroom.
That's at the inception of the proceedings.
Yes. If somebody decided to go to the washroom, somebody decided to go for a lunch, somebody decided to do something else at the time,
still counted as
was being taken. Would you say that simply because that person was in the washroom, or somebody has been taken to the hospital, or something else had happened, for which reason that person will not be in Parliament?
Madam Jiva.
Yes.
I'm just drawing his attention to something. I want to draw your attention to what is the meaning of with at least half of all the members of Parliament present? What is the meaning?
That's exactly what I'm discussing.
Yes, so deal with that.
That's what I'm dealing with.
That is the meat.
So, you see, Jifa, my point here is that, in fact, since he's drawing me back, let me just come back again. I'm saying that the meaning of half of the members present, is it the case that you're referring to the actual time of the voting? Or, for instance, could you also argue that it's actually the time that the motion was put? Or it was actually just after the voting? Because after the voting, you can have different numbers. Like I was saying, somebody could have decided to go to the washroom or somewhere else. Would you consider that person present or not present? Now remember, people had signed in into the logbook that they were present. Those people, you cannot say that they were not present in Parliament. Those people were present in Parliament. They had signed in. And remember, Jiva, this is more important particularly because assuming that member of Parliament was not present, for whatever reason, if he said that that person was not present, it would also go against that member of Parliament because there are periods of time that he can be absent. Now, if the person has signed in that he is present, and indeed he was seen in the House, but at the time of the voting he was not present, can you legitimately say that simply on the basis of the voting that only have exception of the people voting, and so on that basis, these persons who were not present or who did not vote were not present in Parliament? I don't think that's an easy answer. There's no easy answer to this question. And it is very easy to be on either side of the divide and propounding all kinds of theories and interpretations to this, because possibly it affects you negatively or otherwise. But it is very difficult, Jiva, let me be honest with you on this, that a person who was signed in as present, who was seen in the House of Parliament, captured on video and everything else, but decided for whatever reason to walk out at the time a voting was taking place, to say that that person wasn't present will be very difficult. In fact, it will be very difficult to convince me on that. Now, having moved on from there, the question then is, where lies in the solution? Now, the solution to this interpretation, there are only two options. Parliament is a master of its own decisions, and Parliament is a master of its own rules. So what it means is that you may have to go to Parliament to make this whole issue of Article 104 another debate for the Speaker to determine whether or not he would change his mind. Remember, there will be an ego, psychologically, would come in here. There will be an issue of interpretation, which is exactly in reference to what I've just said, i.e. people signing and being present. They are present. Remember, that's what the Constitution is saying, that they should be present. And they were present. They probably didn't take part in the voting. That I agree. But would your absence from voting amount to not being present? I don't think that's a yes. Okay. And so, now, if the Speaker interprets it the way I'm interpreting it, as the people being present because they were present physically, they were present on paper, and their absence from voting may not be enough to warrant a change of this decision that has been taken, your next option would then be to go to the Supreme Court for an interpretation.
And all this before we can approve a budget?
Thank you. So this is where I'm drawing your attention to. So imagine having to go through all this laborious procedure, which may not even go in your favor. We should remember that. The fact of you going to the Supreme Court is not guaranteed that you're going to have a positive response from the Supreme Court. How long would all this drama take us? 6 months? 3 months? A year? To get a single budget taken? Could it have been avoided?
All right,
the answer is yes, you could have avoided it.
Yeah,
but you allowed this to go on.
Okay.
Upon what basis?
Okay. So let me bring Honorable Pemka in because he wanted to respond to you, and then I'll come
I can address his issues when he responds.
Abraham Amaleba. Yes.
So what does it mean to say that a person is present?
This is
the question that we need to determine.
Justice.
Yes.
You are determining the word present in isolation. You will get it wrong if you do that. It says, the first part says present and voting. Please. It is very clear. The first part said present and voting.
So you must be there
and vote.
To vote.
And then the other side says with at least half of all the members of Parliament present. So if you take it in as he knows that the law is that if you are interpreting or looking at a constitutional provision, you construe it as a whole. You don't take words in isolation and make meaning in constitutional interpretation. He knows.
Okay, but when you say half of the members of Parliament present, the numbers are near split. So if you have 137 in,
that's not half. That's not half. Half is 138. That's not half. So, and you see, that's why even when I started making my commentary, I indicated that the speaker himself, okay, gave credence to what the majority is saying now, because he took account. He took account. There was a voice vote, and he took account and came to the conclusion that there were at the time 137 members present on the floor of Parliament. Now, I'm looking at the provision as it is, and I'm saying that they are supposed to be present and voting with at least half of all the members of Parliament present. Okay, so clearly at the time the decision was taken, yes, half of members of Parliament were not present at the time the decision was taken. So you see,
this is where Kwenga possibly is being mischievous. Indeed, he's right when he said that the first part of the Constitution says that, and that's which is why I decided to read it out to you. It says that decisions, in fact, matters in Parliament shall be by votes of majority of members present and voting. Please remember that. Now, the second part says that with at least half of the members of Parliament present. Najifa, the second part is not talking about the voting necessarily.
But don't you read these provisions together, yes, not separately?
No, Jiva, hold on. Now, if as we say in law, that if the framers of the Constitution were intending to refer to the voting itself, adding that last word, present and voting, to the last part wouldn't have been any difficult. The first part, the first part was clear that when decisions are to be taken, it must be taken with these numbers of persons, and they should be there and vote. The second part said that they should just be there, and I've said that these people were there.
Okay, but so I think you've made that point. Okay, so let me hear.
So when they were there, it's the different
Abraham.
thing.
Okay,
the Constitution did not add the voting to this part of it.
Okay, let me.
So you cannot impose into the Constitution. In fact, you cannot make that input into the Constitution when the Constitution did not add it. The Constitution did not say that those people must necessarily be present.
But how would you then repeat vote present and voting and then repeat it again at the end of it?
Why do you repeat the present?
Okay, so let me take Abraham Amaliba's view on this. So now there is a debate about the constitutional provision, what the vote and present means, and concerns that probably the minority are frustrating the majority.
Were the people present?
If you accuse your child of skipping lectures or school, or is not attending school, and your child says, no, I've been attending school, where would you resort to resolve the matter? You go to the school and look at the register. If you go to the school and look at the register and it shows that he's been present, he's present. Now, the register that the MPs sign when they get into the floor, because if this matter even goes to court, that register will be called into evidence. Was there anywhere in that register that stated that 138 were absent? The framers of that provision, Article 104, did not put that provision there to take care or deal with persons who voluntarily, by their own whims and caprices, decide that I'm walking out.
No, but walkouts are part of parliamentary.
That's what I'm saying. Yes, I'm saying that.
So people can decide.
Yes.
What you're not getting is that present is not present in the. Present is different.
Let me give them a very strange scenario.
When you were talking, I wasn't talking.
Okay. I want to draw attention to something. Let me draw his attention to something.
Okay, draw his attention quickly.
275 MPs come and sign in.
They are present.
They are present. Excellent. One member is on the floor. The rest are all out. Then he votes. And he wins the day.
And that is what
weird interpretation are you people giving?
And that is what the Honorable Kojo was raising, that 5 people being on the
275
floor
they are all out.
Okay.
1 is left. Then they say vote. 1 votes. And say because the rest signed in, they were present.
Okay. So
what law is that?
So I am saying that this provision is not intended after parliamentarians have signed to show that they are present.
My God.
And business is ongoing. This provision is not to deal with persons who, when they look at the signs and think that they are going to lose, begin to walk out.
But how do you know they are going to lose?
Okay, let's even say that they are not going to lose, if that is what is your question. It is not supposed to be for persons who voluntarily decide to start walking out of parliament so as to create this situation where they will now be saying that 138 were not present.
But
now,
Abraham, it's unfair to say that because this is the government's budget. What do they gain by refusing to vote on their own budget? These are their own
ask them why,
economic programs and policies
so
for
ask
the
them
next
why
year.
they are running away from their own business. That's the question you should be asking them.
How about the incorporation of the demands by the minority? Doesn't that show some goodwill? Doesn't that show some good faith?
Look. He spoke about that. There was a retreat in Ho, Serene Hotel. And at that retreat, the minority made their position clear. If Oforiatta, from that day, when they left Ho to yesterday, how many days? If Oforiatta intended to incorporate those views, does he need 550 days to do that before bringing the matter to parliament?
It's better late than never.
No,
and besides, it's only 3 days.
Not about late.
It's only 3 days because Mondays they don't sit.
So I am saying, no, it's not about sitting.
Yes, but what I'm just
You could have incorporated and amended and brought out yesterday. It would have been done. How long does it take? How long does that take to amend? When you know what he was saying in Ho, we'll find ways. He wasn't listening to the minority. You heard what he said in Ho. We'll find ways to convince the minority to accept the budget. When people were putting before you genuine concerns,
one of the ways to incorporate their concerns.
If you intended to incorporate, you've come back from Ho. Why didn't you incorporate it before yesterday? Now you come yesterday when the vote is going to be taken. You now saw the signs. We even heard that some monies were being thrown all over the place. When you realized that all those things failed, you brought in nooks to tell them to support your bill, your budget. When all those things failed, you now saw the signs.
Where is the proof in saying
when you saw the
they
signs,
told nooks to support? Nooks says it supports the component of the bill that will support youth startups.
When you then saw the signs on the floor of the house, you are now saying that let's engage. How many days before between Ho retreat and yesterday, why didn't you incorporate it? So I'm saying that this provision 104 is not to take care of persons who haven't made themselves present and business is ongoing, decide to begin to walk away. Okay. If that were it, I'm telling you, when they meet on Tuesday again and they're even going to start afresh, this same situation can arise where, knowing again that the minority will jettison it, will begin to walk away.
Okay, so
and then we will not have a situation where we can clear this.
So quickly, because we need to wrap up, just so that I can take a quick break and we'll come back. What for you is the way forward? The way forward is clear. We are not in the US where money cannot be spent. There's vote on account. You can borrow for 3 months. So let your viewers know that it is not as if having rejected this budget, government will not be given any resources. In fact, there's vote on account. It's just like coming to borrow. And you are allowed to borrow for 3 months. Then you can now put your house in order and then bring a proper budget. It's not like we are in a dire situation. Nothing can happen. Something can happen. 3 months you can borrow and then we can continue. All right. Give 30 seconds. Just no, but why? How many times? I'll come back. We will still come back. It's a very important information. We'll come back to this. Don't worry. We'll come back to it. I'm not attending to you. No. You see, I want to talk about the quorum. Just 30 seconds. When quorum is raised on the floor of parliament, they don't go and bring the register. They count those who are on the floor. That's what I want you to know. Okay, we'll come back for a bit on that. A bit more on that. And it's still the key points here on TV3. I'm not talking about quorum. I'm talking about present. Discussion and debate so far. Thanks very much for staying with us. Some of your messages have come through, so let me take a look at them. This one says, great show of patriotism by the minority in parliament. The rejected budget was nothing but a document of burden on the Ghanaian people, especially our young people. The youth wing is particularly proud of the minority leadership for being on the side of the people. And that's from Honorable Anifi in Tamale Central Constituency. This one from Ablade in Ifiakuma Zongo Takradi. The 2022 budget rejected by Parliament. I'm glad democracy is truly now being practiced in the House. The government cannot just impose anything on Ghanaians if our Parliament do the work, having the citizens in mind first before their party. Well done to the MPs. And Daniel from Sandema writes, I'm happy the minority have vigorously stood against the 2022 Parliament. The budget, if not worked upon, will only worsen the plight of the ordinary Ghanaian. Kudos to the minority. And Sule in Tamale writes, good morning to Jifa and the panel. The action of the majority is a face-saving move. It's clear that they are seeking to distance themselves from this budget. The finance minister will have to go back, do his homework well, and replace this with a more development-centered budget. And there is nothing the majority in the House can do. Thank you very much for sending those messages on our WhatsApp line 055-369-8789. Let me come to Honorable Pemka. There's the view that the Speaker of Parliament has not been acting fairly. Many would typically say that the Speaker of Parliament is a referee. Justice Abdullahi used the word that he's demonstrated a lot more involvement and activism. Is that bad for the majority side and bad for government business?
Thank you very much. You see, for me, anything that is done by any leader in any capacity that is geared towards ensuring that as a people we move forward and as a nation we progress, I'm all out for it and I'll support any such leader. But if your leadership tends to bring about chaos and crisis at very critical points in our national development agenda, then we'll have to question it and probably bring sanity. You see, there's a certain leadership style which is coming into Parliament. And I think that Right Honourable Speaker is a very astute person. In terms of parliamentary experience in Ghana, no one else compares. That's the truth of the matter. Because he has been the longest serving member of Parliament, the only person among the pioneer members, and etc. And one will expect. And I think even that was one of the reasons why he rose up to that particular position that he occupies today. But events of recent times is actually giving people some level of doubts, and people are asking a lot of questions with respect to happenings on the floor of Parliament and etc. Remember that even though you may have been sponsored by a political party to be elected as Speaker and etc., you remain an arbiter and a neutral umpire in order to ensure that things that happen on the floor bring about national integration, cohesion, and development. That is what your cardinal duty is. But you see, when I started hearing comments like, I am number 2, I am number 3, I am number... I just said that
it but wasn't... those are in jest, really.
Yes, but they were not necessary. These are constitutional, issues. And of course, he's not been the first person, and he will not be last. Others occupied the position before him. The Justice D.F. Anans, the Okwe's, the rest, they all occupied those positions, and then they've left the position. So it's symbolic. When you are there to serve for a period. When it's over, you leave, another person comes to take over, and etc. As to whatever position you occupy, it's a constitutional issue. Our constitution says that in the absence of the president, in terms of hierarchy, the vice president takes precedence. In his absence, it is the speaker. In his absence, it is the chief justice. That's what the constitution says. It does not lie in anybody to tell us again, because that is what the constitution tells us anyway. But you see, if you look at happenings, I was of the opinion, and candidly, I thought that Mr. Speaker, having noticed that there were at that moment 137 members of Parliament would not have put the question. Clearly, Mr. Speaker knew that Article 104 was binding on him. And as Article 104, as I said, is repeated verbatim in the standing orders. And so one would have thought that as a very astute lawyer as he is, with so much parliamentary experience at his disposal, he ought to have drawn his own attention to this and acted in a manner that would have ensured that he complied with this constitutional dictate. And ignoring it and going ahead to put the question will lead to people raising a lot of genuine and legitimate questions, whether or not what he did and what he engaged in by putting that question was actuated by goodwill or bad faith. And I will go for the latter, because if you are an astute lawyer and a very experienced person, and you know or ought to have known that a particular constitutional injunction is binding on you, and you don't comply or go by it, then there's mischief. And to that extent, people genuinely will question it. Again, your actions and conduct, like, for example, saying that you may have to call the marshal to walk out a minister who was an integral part of what you were doing. Remember that the finance minister is an integral part of the business of the House as far as budget approval is concerned. So to have threatened to walk him out using the marshal and all that, I think that it showed a sense of machismo, which was not necessary at all at that time, when we needed to have sober heads and then speak to one another for purposes of national integration and unity and moving the nation forward. I think that that order for me was not necessary. He could have stayed back. After all, if the voice is made and you are not satisfied with it, you can go for numbers, in which case he's not qualified to vote, and etc. I have followed events in Parliament in the last few days, and it looks like we are driving ourselves into an abyss, and we should not get there at all. We should just allow cool heads to prevail, do what is right, go by the dictates of the Constitution and other legislations that are governing us as far as our work in Parliament is concerned, so that at the end of the day, Ghana will be the winner. Look, remember that there are a lot of things there, and I think that the minority, for example, are not against the budget in its entirety. That is the point. They are not against the budget in its entirety. There are certain provisions.
Mr. Maliba has indicated that if there was any goodwill to engage, there's been a weak opportunity to engage, and then the finance minister could have brought back a revised document that could have probably passed.
This is the point. If you have laid the thing on the floor of Parliament and you don't have leave of Parliament, how do you do that? You have laid it. It now becomes a document of Parliament. Then suddenly you go and bring a new document and say, oh, I've incorporated your thing, this is it. You have to seek the permission of the House to do that. Otherwise, there will be chaos. Because after you have laid that, it becomes a document of the House. And until there is permission, you cannot amend it on your own. So, Motu, you cannot amend it. So he was supposed to come.
Engagement is the engagement. But the engagement could have even started at home. Let me make the point before you come in.
I'm addressing that.
The request by the finance minister was, can I further engage? And that's what I'm saying, that this engagement could have been done. And yesterday, he would have been saying that I have engaged and I have incorporated. Can I seek leave to remove that what is there and then bring a new one? But there was no engagement. That's what I'm saying. What you understand was that we were going to find ways. And that is where we saw some monies being told that monies are being sent somewhere, and what is the name? Students were asked to support the budget.
Oh,
the
that has nothing to do with
those ones, I don't even know whether you have any evidence. As a lawyer, I don't know whether you have any evidence.
No, but let's address.
Support what you are talking about.
The point
as a lawyer, I can't hear.
You don't have any evidence.
I have no ears.
No.
But
please, you know that in law, hearsay,
and I'm saying that
may not be a good ground to come to any conclusion.
We have heard. It's an allegation.
Please.
But let's address the substantive
engagement
without bringing in
engagement.
I think I'm on the floor and I'm about to
so the engagement. That's what started.
You see,
before yesterday.
Mr. Maliba, are you giving tuition to the finance minister as to how engagements will be carried out or when it will be carried out? The point is that I have come to the floor of Parliament and I'm telling you to give me the opportunity so that I can engage with you. You are telling me that I would have given you that opportunity if you had come earlier. I mean, that argument doesn't hold.
Did they attempt to engage?
The point is that we want to approve a budget, and we've reached a point where we need further engagement to incorporate your grievances. You cannot say that because the person is coming to you at this time, he should have come earlier. Because he has come 1 week later, you are not going to agree. I don't know the wisdom in that.
He didn't say
I don't know the
arguments.
wisdom. He said he was going. Look,
He didn't say
the point is that,
arguments.
Mr. Amaleba, remember also that his response was actuated by the conduct of the minority during the debate. During the debate, they raised issues. So he could not have engaged them at all. They raised issues. When they were contributing on the floor, the various speakers raised germane and legitimate issues that the finance minister found wisdom in that. So he now comes on the floor before the debate is concluded to assure those who made those legitimate concerns or raised those legitimate concerns that, yes, I have listened to you. You made wisdom. You have made a point. So I want to seek leave of the House to incorporate the things you said during the debate.
To engage, not to incorporate.
No, okay, but it is when you engage with the minority, you will get these views and incorporate them into the budget so that they now approve. Then you say that he should have done it earlier.
Yeah,
Okay,
At the earlier part you are talking about, had they raised those points on the floor, the answer is no. You know, so once it's no, the opportunity to engage was still there.
Okay, so Mr. Amaleba, it's two issues here. The bit about the engagement, of course, but there is a view that Speaker Bagbin is getting overly involved. He doesn't seem to be playing the role of a referee, and the majority may feel a sense of, I don't want to use the word intimidation, but unfairness in his approach. And so, much as it also seems unfair, somebody leaked information that he is traveling tonight. He'll be away for 2 weeks for medical checks. These things are usually, private matters unless the person decides to make it public. And it seems as if he was in a rush to get all of this over and done with so that he could travel.
You see, the majority have not woken up to the fact that this is not their usual parliament, where they had 100 and how many?
169.
They could just walk, literally walk. They've not woken up to that fact. That is what they should adjust themselves to.
But what has the speaker got to do with that?
No, I'm saying something. I'm saying that this parliament, the way the parliament is, that parliament is, you must know the kind of speaker you have when you have this parliament. Now, having not woken up to that fact, and because they are still consumed in their previous majoritarian rule, they are unable to adjust to the situation that we have now. And in my earlier submission, the commencement of my submission, I said that the people of this country deliberately gave out this parliament for this parliament to be the parliament that the people of Ghana want. With the speaker, what has the speaker done? The speaker has time without number indicated that we need to strengthen parliament. Haven't you heard him? Even yesterday, didn't you hear him say that? He has time without number said that, look, the days when parliament was treated shabbishly by the executive are gone. And so you now have an activist speaker. In fact, he's not the first. Alajete, if you remember, you are as old as me. If you remember Alajete sought to assert that. But because he belonged to them, they hanged him and brought in Ebenezer Hughes. So, Bagbin is of that stock. Now, nowhere did Bagbin say that if Oforiatta doesn't work out, and that's the lies they started perpetrating yesterday, nowhere did Bagbin say that directly. Oforiatta, if you don't work out, I will let the marshals come and turn you out. What he said was that lobbyists should leave. And that if lobbyists don't leave, he will bring in the marshal. Was he the only one? Was Oforiatta the only one? I can understand.
But what about the alternative?
Which is what?
Instead of doing that, taking a vote where the finance minister is not eligible.
So let me make it abundantly clear to your viewers. Not where the speaker target Oforiatta. It was to lobbyists. And Oforiatta himself, we also started working out. So these lies must be killed. That he said Oforiatta, if he doesn't leave Oforiatta, they will bring a marshal. That must be put at the back burner.
But he's the ultimately the most important person coming to push through a certain document that is the subject of discussion.
All the others who were there are not important.
Okay, madam, just a minute.
All the important.
Amaleba, can you name two two other people, apart from Foriata, who were on the floor and they were not having voting rights.
I saw a woman.
Which woman? Which woman?
Why? Should I have
Which
everybody's
woman?
name?
Mention names.
Why? We all saw it.
You are a lawyer.
We all saw it.
Mention names. Who?
I'm a lawyer means that I should be carrying people's names. What kind of argument is that?
Evidence.
The evidence is in the video. We saw it. What do you mean I should carry people's names in my head?
But so
have I finished carrying my own problems? I should be working with people's names in my head because I'm a lawyer. Oh my God. We all saw it.
But not to say that those
no,
people are not relevant people.
Yes.
But let's face it,
Yes.
the finance minister, it's his document.
So
He's
yes.
the only one who was going to be there.
I thought that an exception.
In fact, he has more
that,
of an interest in this whole matter
but in this
than the other
matter,
people.
in this matter, he had already made his submissions. He had already the arguments had ended. The debate had ended. It was just about voting, keke. If I don't speak that, you understand. It was just about just voting, and he didn't need to vote. That wasn't to say that after the voting he wouldn't have been brought back to know the outcome. So Babi never told Ken to move out. If not, he'll bring Marshall. He said that lobbies. You heard the word lobbies. Now, the issue of whether Babin is fair to them or it's not fair to them. Look, since DF Annan, my good friend David Annan's father. Look, since his days, it has always been so. Where the speaker belongs to another side, you find the other side accusing him of that. So these are matters. And indeed, look, even amongst us, I don't know whether you are aware, even among we the NLC, sometimes we criticize him. We say that he's not doing
He's not doing your
more.
meeting.
Yes, we've said that. In fact, there were open castigation of him. I think it was all over the place. So I think he has a mind of his own. What he's out to do, and if they all assist him, and that's why he said that you are not undermining me. He said yesterday that look, if you are doing this, you are not undermining me. The institution you are undermining. We need to build a strong parliament because parliament of the three arms of government is the institution that has suffered most because whenever there's a coup d'etat, it's parliament. The justices they are there, the executives are there. It's parliament. It's now that they are getting offices. So if we are a democratic country and we agree we are, then we should be looking at the way Babin is trying to strengthen our the parliament and ensure that we have a strong parliament. I think we should support him rather than castigating him.
Justice, you were the one who raised that point that has led to this whole catalyst. I mean, what do you project going? Because we've just gone through 1 year of this near-split parliament. I almost shudder to think what the next 3 years will look like.
I also look forward to the next 3 years. I pray that all of us will be here to witness it. God willing. In fact, it is not entirely accurate when Amaliba says that all other previous speakers have been accused of this, the biasness or otherwise. He indeed mentioned
Peter Alajete.
He was never accused of that. Amen. Indeed, he was rather praised by the opposition.
For his independence.
For his independence, which is why he was even nominated by the opposition to be the next speaker. So the point here is that you would see independence and neutrality, and you can identify one when you meet one. What we are talking about with respect to the present speaker is not necessarily about his independence or neutrality. It's about how he's always engaged in the everyday governance structure of this republic. That is the point in issue. As for his independence, I don't think that is in doubt. Much as the majority may have issues with it. However, we have a speaker who literally engages almost every other sector of the democratic structures of this country. And that is unusual. We have never had that. That is what I'm raising. That we probably should be watching out on some of these matters, because otherwise you are likely to have a country with two presidents, because Speaker is giving orders all over. The last time he gave orders to...
Maybe he's also going beyond bounds. There's a view that he's...
But that's the point I'm making. That's why I say that he's becoming too much of an activist. Because he's giving orders to ministers, he's giving orders to the IGs and all kinds of persons. We are not saying that you probably do not have certain level of authority or leverage, particularly with respect to the office you occupy. But we say that those things could have still been done in a more refined way without anybody even having to notice it.
So I guess feedback is something he needs to
You could still do the same thing.
All right, let's take a...
And talking about castigating ministers and all of that, that brings in, I know this one is not part of our discussions. I remember, I think in one of your shows, I mentioned that the minister in charge of roads may be in trouble. Now with this budget out of the way, so we need to be asking ourselves the question, that
about
difficult question.
The decision to stop the
road tolls. We are almost a week away. Who is going to account for those monies?
Ghanaians are happy not to pay.
No, everybody's happy. I'm happy.
But
however, is it lawful?
I disagree, though, about
Is it lawful?
that.
Oh, no, I'm happy. I actually wish I don't pay anything, actually,
because
in this world.
In the country we are in, we need funds. And when you drive on the motorway and you feel it sinking beneath you, a road that was invested in some 40 years ago.
I get the argument you're making.
It makes one despair. I was on that road this week. I guess the challenge is that monies collected on that road have not been applied in the manner that many of us would have liked.
Monies taken
and so it
by
raises the
our
question
governments have never been used for anything useful.
Levies. Yes.
Our governments have never used our monies for the right things. We can't even account for bulk of the monies that we raise, whether borrowed or raised locally. There is always a challenge with how we use our resources. And so it makes it difficult when you're paying your taxes and other things that you genuinely...
You are not seeing
because you don't see the benefits of it.
Okay, let's take the Honorable Nilante van der Poy, who is the MP for Ododododo and former Deputy Local Government Minister. Good day to you, Honorable van der Poy. Many thanks for your time. So what are your thoughts on how things have gone down and what would be the next steps? Is the budget out, or there's an opportunity to re-look at it, look at a new document, maybe if the finance minister comes back to the House and requests so?
Thank you very much, Chifa. And I was going to say good morning to your panelists, especially my very good friend, Honorable Kwenka. Chifa, I just want to straighten up two things. I may not be a lawyer like my senior brother, Amaliba, or Honorable Kwenka, but I definitely have been a member of Parliament for some time now, and I know the procedures of Parliament. One, Honorable Kwenka talked about the issue of the finance minister being asked to leave the chamber. As a former member of Parliament, he will know that when his people moved the motion, asked that the House should go into a division, anybody or every member of government who is not a member of Parliament should leave the chamber. Because the division he asked for is founded on the premise that he doesn't believe the Speaker was right in his judgment on the voice vote. You understand? So anybody who is a stranger in the House at that time must leave the House. Our standing orders are very clear on this. The reason being that so that the next time the voice vote is going to be taken, or the second time, we may have the right call from the Speaker. If that one too is challenged, then we go into what we call the vote, which is by counting or by voting. That is the procedure in Parliament. So they saying that the Speaker ejected or threatened or was intimidating the finance minister, it's not neither here or nor there, because they asked for it.
Okay, but Honorable Van der Poy.
Secondly, Honorable Kwenka talked about the issue when Amanda raised the issue of consultation. Budget preparation is a long process. Budget preparation is a long process. The Minister of Finance should have engaged members of parliament all the way down before he even presented the document. These things have been done in the past. You will hear Honorable Seydou Nketia mention the fact that during the time of Sapo Marafo, he and some of his colleagues were always consulted. Sepepe used to do that. People like Honorable Osai Koto, former MP, and the rest, have always been engaged in the budget preparation process. So before you come into the House, you have an inkling into the other side's thinking. It may not be similar to the thinking of government, but then you will have an appreciation of what their demands will be. So when the Speaker asked that the minister should do that, and the minister came up, the minister did not say that he is putting up a motion to withdraw the budget as it is and incorporate the issues that have been raised by the minority. He said he will want to engage with an extended leadership of the House. That is all right. That is our procedure. So that the belief out there that he knows how to convince members of parliament to accept his budget would be a reality. No, we didn't want any of us to tomorrow be said to have taken money or been influenced. So if you want to confer with us, we have made our points and issues clear to you through the presentation of our leadership. So there's no further need for you to go and meet a part of the minority. So when we come back, people will say, hey, they've gone to be influenced. So we decided that, look, it's either he withdraws the budget, go and incorporate those things, and do the consultations very well, and come back. But then they decided not to. So all this while, we have given them opportunity so that they could have the consensus building processes that we've always anticipated that Parliament should be engaged in. Finally, let me say this. Honorable Penka has raised the issue of legitimacy of the decision taken by the Speaker. He should read the Constitution very well, 104 very well, the one that depending on. He said at least half of Parliament. We have 275.
So Honorable Van der Poel, let me ask you, if they say at least half of Parliament, is it at the beginning when everybody has registered and some have decided to step out, or it is at the time of the vote? Because that has been the controversy also for us here. Because if people have signed in, they are deemed to be present if they've walked out. Or is it at the time the vote is to be taken where that registration does not matter?
As at the time the vote was going to be taken, it is clear that the MPP members of Parliament were in Parliament. By law, they were in Parliament.
Even though they weren't on the floor itself to take this important vote?
What it means is that you are abstaining from voting. Because you've already signed to be in the House. You were in the House, you moved the motion, and you walk out. To us, they didn't walk out. Some of them were in the toilet, some of them were in their offices. To us, that's what we knew as at the time. Two, let me also say this. Even 137 is half of Parliament.
I'm told that 138 is half of Parliament, not 137. 138.
No, 138 cannot be half of 275.
It's 137.5.
It's 137.5.
But we know we don't have half a human being.
So we don't have half a human being. No. So why do you claim it to 138?
No, so it means you approximate to the next figure, which is 138.
That's the word.
No, you can. It's the same way you can approximate to the figure before to make it 137.
137 cannot be half of 127.
Then you can say that 138. But 5, you cannot claim it to be 138. You understand me? 2, we are saying this. After the time of the vote, the MPP members were in Parliament. Walking out does not mean that this cannot be taken. Ask Honorable Penka, when they brought the CI for the last elections, and we walked out, didn't they go ahead to take the vote?
Because we had the numbers.
Didn't they go ahead to take the vote?
Because we had the numbers.
And use the CI in the last elections. When we walked out on the issue of the Ghana card,
we had more than half.
didn't they go ahead and take the vote?
More than half in president.
But that is because we had more than half.
Okay, so Honorable Benka will answer that, but I want to say thanks for that intervention. We've already gone a bit beyond our time on this, but Honorable Benka, since he referred to you, mentioned you 3 times, I give you the last word
Of course,
on
of
that.
course,
So answer the last question for me on the last CI you brought. I think you were Deputy Attorney General
clearly,
at the time.
we were having 169. And so when they walked out, we formed that constitutional quorum or injunction. And so we went ahead to do what we were supposed to do. But they don't have that number as we speak. So the comparison he's making is wrong, clearly. And you see, again, I drew his attention to something. And I wanted you to ask that, unfortunately, we didn't have the time.
Yes, we don't have
For
the
example,
time.
Justice, I raised this hypothesis that all 275 members have come and signed in. They have their names on the register, 275.
They are present.
Wow.
They are present.
Yes.
Agreed. At the time of taking a decision on the floor, there are 5 people. Then you say that if the 5 people vote 5, all 5 vote in favor. There is nobody abstaining. The decision is valid because the rest of them were present, only that they didn't vote. That's what you are saying?
Yes.
That's not what the framers anticipated. If that is the case, then all that you need to do is to create chaos. If you want to have the vote, if you are even 5 people, you want to have the vote, create chaos, get everybody out, and the 5 of you will take a decision. That is not what the Constitution is saying. 104 is clear. More than half of, at least half of the members of parliament ought to be present for such a decision to be taken.
Yes,
it is totally different. You see, that is why this is different from quorum. And let's distinguish this.
Yeah, this is different from the required quorum that we all talk about.
Required quorum is 1/3.
Joe, we are not even talking about
It's 1/3.
No, it's because it's been raised, so it's good he makes the distinction.
But the issue has nothing to do with quorum.
Yes, but this
I'm distinguishing between quorum and the issue of half of members of parliament present. You see, you people, what you have done.
No.
Is that
you people are fair?
Okay.
What? You don't know our names.
What Mr. Amaliba?
Sadly, you don't know.
What my brother Mr. Amaliba has done is to say that when Parliament is meeting, and then people have come and registered,
they are present.
They are present.
Yes.
So
which is what the Honourable Van der Poel is also saying.
If on the floor, 3 people are seated at the time of the decision, you don't look at that and take a decision. No. You look at how many registered over there.
Yes.
Hold on. That is the argument he's making.
Yes.
And I'm saying that will be wrong. Totally wrong, because those 3 people who are present, and of course, as I said,
it must be about who is in the chamber.
Because as far as I am concerned, when I was a member of parliament, there was no occasion when the issue of quorum was raised and they went to bring a register. See, no occasion. It is the people who are on the floor.
And that's because you are
getting,
getting the context wrong.
No. Okay, so the context is wrong. And then Amaliba, and then we wrap up.
This is the issue at hand. The issue here is this. We are not just referring to, or at least not me, I'm not just referring to the issue of logging in that you are present. I'm talking about logging in and physically being in the House of Parliament. And then just when a decision is taken,
then you step
out. That is completely different from just simply writing your name in a register and not being present in the House itself. They are 2 different things. And what we have today, or at least as of last night, is the second angle. Is the fact that the person registered, the person was in the House of Parliament, the person had actually moved a motion and decided to stage a walkout. And the decision is taken, and you say that decision is illegitimate. On the basis of what?
Okay.
You were not just present. You were present. You moved an application.
Okay.
And that application was heard.
All right.
And decided upon. And you are saying that you are not present.
No. Okay.
How is that?
Amaliba, your point.
If you were to allow...
The fact that you decided not to vote does not mean that you are not present. So, Jifa, my position is completely different and removed from an issue of simply having your name in a register and not being physically present in the floor, on the floor of House of the Parliament. That's a different thing.
But you see, I'm asking him to
address
this issue, which is not being addressed.
I did.
No, wait. When you talk about all the members of parliament, half of them, what does it mean?
I did.
I've asked you that time and again. And you're not answering.
So Abraham,
you're either not listening. Let me repeat it just in half a sentence. I have said, and I repeat it, that when the law says that half of you should be present, if I have said that, indeed, what we had...
That's the first part.
They were there. And we all admit that, indeed, we had more than half. Now, remember, and we're also talking about the fact that Here we are talking about the voting. And I'm saying that the first half is in reference to being present and voting. The second part is only in reference to being present. And I've said that, and I've just given you the answer, that the present here is being physically present. And the people were physically present. They did not just sign in. That they were present.
But you don't have the 138.
But,
there is no
however,
137.5.
No, I'm not even talking about the numbers there. I'm saying that these people were present, having signed in, and have coming to the floor of the House and moving the application.
So they neglected to act
So the fact that they walked out on the voting does not mean that they were not present.
Okay, quick.
They were present
okay,
indeed.
You made the point.
They were present
so
and voted.
Abraham, your point quickly
I'm
so that we
saying
need to
that
take this break.
Half of members of parliament were present yesterday. My evidence is the register. My next point is that if we were to allow the MPP argument that the half should be seen on the floor, then I dare say that it will create some absurdity when a group of parliament foresee that their position is going to be shut down. All they need to do is to start walking away so that business of parliament cannot go on. That is not what the law envisaged. The law is clear. When this matter ends up in court, that register will be called. Were they present? And I gave you the example of your child, who anyway is punctual in school anyway, but the evidence would have been in the register. So that argument cannot hold.
Okay, so that's where I have to end it, and I guess the jury is still out on that. We'll see what happens next week. And we are not done yet, but we just need to wrap up on this. I want to say thanks to all of you for your messages so far.